you guys for coming this afternoon and spending your afternoon with me. I'm just going to give you a hopefully relatively brief and interesting presentation on the current state of the STEPS program at our lovely campus. So what is STEPS? Per NEISD, STEPS provides a continuum of services for students struggling with behavioral expectations and require a more intense intervention that can be provided in Tier 1 and Tier 2. STEPS provides direct instruction through integrated behavior strategies to reduce out-of-classroom learning. Students will be encouraged and reinforced by using pro-social behaviors and improving coping strategies and replacement behaviors. What services are provided in STEPS at Hardy Oak? Students who are eligible for STEPS services at Hardy Oak, or just in NEISD in general, can come to the STEPS classroom for the following reasons: scheduled social skills minutes that are itemized as such on their IEP, breaks, both scheduled and unscheduled, de-escalation, which is usually going to be unscheduled as needed, self-contained, which we don't have currently, but we could have. When students are overstimulated by the general education setting, they may need to bring their academic work with them to the STEPS room and spend some time in there to complete their work. And for check-ins, which tend to happen in the gen ed setting rather than in the STEPS classroom. Who's eligible for STEPS services? Only students with IEPs are eligible for STEPS services. Students who are receiving Tier 1 or Tier 2 behavioral supports or are general education students may eventually receive STEPS if they complete the evaluation process and become SPED students. If, and only if, the data collected is showing that the student required interventions that are more intensive than the Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions they were provided previously. If not, the student will continue to receive their Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports in the general education setting because the data should indicate that this is working for the student. What are the district's expectations for teaching social skills in the special education setting? The district requires that social skills are directly taught using the evidence-based curriculum designed to support IEP behavior goals. Rethink is the curriculum that teachers are expected to use with fidelity to teach social skills in NEISD. STEPS teachers are expected to conduct a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year social skills assessment through Rethink to collect social skills baseline and growth data as aligned to their IEP goals. What do social skills groups look like at Hardy Oak? Most of the social skills groups meet 3 times a week maximum. I did create a scope and sequence using the Rethink lessons that I have linked here. I'll share this presentation with y'all later if you are very interested. We spend our first day of the week meeting as a group, usually Monday for most social skills groups, unless there's a holiday or, like today, there's a crisis and I'm otherwise engaged. Watching the Rethink video on the grade level topic of the week, answering some discussion questions about the video that Rethink provides, followed by taking a small 3-question max quiz as a group to assess understanding of the skill. Day 2 of the week typically involves engaging in a follow-up activity provided by Rethink. On day 3 and 4, for those few groups that do meet 4 times a week, I use the morning meeting book to plan circle meetings where students practice taking turns sharing and actively listening to others share. For those students who I do see 5 days a week, Friday is pretty informal. We just share what we're going to be doing over the weekend or planning of working, because one thing that friends seem to have in common across grade levels is they struggle to share and they struggle with turn taking. Rethink overview. Rethink is a comprehensive educational technology platform designed to support the whole child. This comes from its website. By integrating academic, behavioral, and mental health solutions, it provides evidence-based tools for educators, students, and families with a strong emphasis on social emotional learning and special education. Rethink provides, per its website, curricula that aligns to learning outcomes, digital data management, and streamlined IEP goal writing resources. So, morning meeting overview. The morning meeting book, K-8 by Roxanne Creeks, is a guide for educators on implementing the responsive classroom morning meeting. Oh, there's a typo. A daily gathering to build community and skills through 4 components: greeting, sharing, group activity, and morning message. So when I started teaching over 20 years ago up in the Bronx, we actually had a responsive classroom that is I think it's like a nonprofit organization that's based in Massachusetts, come in and train us on how to do the morning meeting and all the classes. I co-taught in a 4th grade class that year, and all the classes did it because it was a principal's initiative. And then the other time I really used it was 2 summers ago when I served as the social emotional learning teacher in the newcomer summer school program at Jacksonville School. And the kids, they really did love it. It really was a hit. Breaks and de-escalation and steps. Per the district, the students who fit the steps profile are typically those whose FIE, IEP, and behavior data indicate needing direct instruction to learn replacement behaviors for severe and frequent behavior, including but not limited to physical aggression towards others, self-injurious behaviors, and elopement. The student may require an FBA, also known as a functional behavioral assessment, which I actually used to write those in the other states that I taught in, but in Texas it's required that an LSSP complete them. And then we use that FBA to write a BIP, which is also known as a behavior intervention plan. If a student requires self-contained minutes and steps, they need to have an FBA, a BIP, and we must collaborate with a behavior facilitator from the district. That is a non-negotiable, as I learned recently per Jackie Erickson. What do breaks and de-escalations look like at Hardy Oak? Some students have scheduled motor breaks that occur at the same time every day. And what we do is we walk the campus and sometimes spend a few minutes in the sensory or pre-K hallway. Unscheduled breaks / de-escalations, I kind of use those interchangeably. Although you could have a break but not necessarily need to de-escalate. But when a student needs to take some time to de-escalate or take a break in the steps room, I always begin by informing them that I'm setting a timer for 5 minutes and that I will not discuss anything with them until that 5 minutes is up. They're welcome to go in one of the 2 tents I have. I actually have 3, but one of them is a student, personal tent that her family provided. Or they can sit at my table. When the 5 minutes are up, I check in to see if they are ready to discuss what happened. If they're ready to talk about it or write it down, because some kids prefer to write it down, why they are upset or why they are taking a break in steps, we proceed. If not, I reset the timer for another 5 minutes to give the student more time to cool down. And I repeat this process if necessary, but so far, I really haven't had to give them more than 10 minutes. That's just circumstantially kind of how it's worked out. Before the student is reintegrated into the gen ed classroom, we discuss what the student could have done differently and how they might handle the situation differently in the future if something similar happens again. I walk the student back to class and we meet in the hallway with the classroom teacher to recap what we discussed and to give the student an opportunity to privately apologize to the teacher. How data is tracked and service records are kept. So this is the sign-in sheet that I use. I learned this from Dr. Craig, who is the STEPS teacher over at Stone Oak, and somebody who, it's because I can't show you because I'm my personal email. Basically what it is the student has to write their name. I have everybody write their name regardless of their grade level. If they can only write their initials, they write their initials. There are a few instances where I'll write their name for them, but it's not really served as evidence unless the student signs their name. I put the date, I put the time, and then I just circle the reason why they're there. If they're there for social skills group, that gets circled. If they're there for a check-in, which again, I don't really do the check-ins, Ms. Q does more of the check-ins, those happen in the gen ed setting, but I just have it on there. Then I'll circle that. If it's for a de-escalation or a break, I will circle that. And then I just put the time that they leave as well. So I kind of just went through this, but students sign in, I record the date, the time, the reason or reasons the student is with me. I upload these sheets electronically and save them in a folder in my drive as evidence that they were serviced. If a student was absent at the nurse, completing work, or can't make it to social skills, because that's really the only one that's going to be scheduled. Like I said, there's companies that can schedule breaks. I just document it there. And it's proof that they were offered the service, but they just weren't available to take it at that time. How data is tracked and service records or CAPS-LINE 2. If a student is spending a higher volume of time with me for de-escalation and or breaks, this documentation serves as data because I can look to see if there are patterns in the time of day or during a specific non-preferred activity that's happening in the classroom that these incidents are happening, and this can offer some insights as to why the student might be engaging in the behaviors that they're behaving. And more often than not, it is to get out of a non-preferred activity or it's attention seeking, in my experience so far. Or both. New things I have learned from the district as of Thursday, February 26th, 2026. I'm just sharing this because I learned this at my GLC meeting, because I'm also the sped at GLC. Before we can add or decrease step minutes per student, we need to address the following questions. Where does the student fit on the levels of student support? And that was supposed to be linked there, but I was otherwise engaged today, so I could not, so I will fix it. But the district has a continuum of levels of support that I will link there. Have all lower level supports, such as the tier 1 and tier 2 that I already kind of talked about, been exhausted. Before considering partial day or self-contained steps for a student, we have to consider the following questions. There's two. One, what services will be offered in steps? Two, what is steps provided above and beyond what can be achieved in the general education classroom? And it's important that this be included in the present level of academic achievement and functional performance section of the IEP. Some of you may not be familiar with the acronym FLAP if you are not writing 400 IEPs a year like some of us do. Some other new things, before we can attempt to put a student in self-contained steps, we need to loop in our campus program coordinator, who is currently Derek Gordon. If we put someone in that setting, they must have a reintegration goal that sets them up to be successfully reintegrated into the general education setting at some point in time. We cannot try self-contained until we have tried working with a district level behavior facilitator, and those are people that come out and work with us once we get parent permission for them to do so. And the reason for that being is that they are a neutral party who's not going to have any kind of bias or be familiar with like campus level politics or those kinds of things, and can give us a more unbiased opinion of what to do. And then there also is a document that should be linked here for reintegration goals guidance. And before I share this with anybody, I will fix that. What's going well with steps at Hardy Oak? So as you may or may not remember, we brought steps back to our campus in October, so the school year had already started, so we got off to a little bit of an awkward start. But in spite of that, social skills groups are being pulled consistently. Yay. Rethink is being used by me. Teachers are consistently supported by either myself or Ms. Q when they call for backup, or other people if either of us are available. Data and service logs are collected, documented, and available as needed. STEP staff has a solid rapport with the teachers and the students. Next steps for improving steps. See what I did there? In 2026-2027. Better data collection systems for behavior data collection purposes. Dr. Craig did educate me on a few when I went to shadow her back in October. I just haven't really had the capacity to implement them yet. Using rethink assessments for baseline, midline, and endline data points, because that is an expectation, as I said earlier, by the district for rethink. I didn't necessarily do that, but next year it will be happening with PIP. Being more intentional on who and how we assign STEPS minutes to. STEPS teacher will do a campus-wide presentation, kind of like this, at the beginning of the school year per district expectations, so we can all be on the same page about de-escalating students when they are struggling, rather than reinforcing behaviors we don't want to reinforce or inadvertently escalating students more. I'm also going to work on putting together a PBIS system school store as far as what that looks like, whether it's for everybody, whether it's specific for STEPS kids, remains to be seen. I think that is it. Are there any questions? I hope you feel very enlightened have any questions, feel free to email me, and if I don't know the answer, I'll try to